What is up, my ducks and drakes? Welcome to the Crawdad Lake, and today we're going to be discussing stories from 2nd grade. I have a series where I just talk about my years in school while I draw, and you could check those out on my channel. And like I said, today we're discussing 2nd grade stories. If you would like to see me do things, then yeah. I don't know where I went with that, but 2nd grade, it was one of the best years of school that I have been through. My teacher was fabulous, the kids were iffy, and it went by really fast. And when I say the kids were iffy, that was actually a compliment, considering that usually kids are trash. So this year, this is when I got into my writing phase. I had a rainbow shiny peace sign journal that I stole from my mom that she got from the PTA. And I wrote tons of stories in there, followed by pictures, and I spent almost all my free time drawing and writing in this journal. Like, this was my whole life. Like, if anything happened to this journal, I think I would have screamed and cried. But what I would do is I'd write a story. With most of them was me writing fan fiction before I knew what fan fiction was, because my teacher would read stories, like Skippy John Jones, that like cat thing that went to the circus, and also she read a lot of Sock Monkey stories and Junie B. Jones, and I'd write stories with Junie B. Jones, Skippy John Jones, Hey Jones, and Sock Monkey, and I'd write my own stories with the same characters. I was writing fan fiction before I knew what fan fiction was. I mean, what? And I might actually have to read some of these stories on my channel because, oh wow, I could not spell in 2nd grade. I think I can't spell now. I really couldn't spell back then. But I would read these stories in front of the class, and everyone hated it, but I cannot tell you how much this made my day every time I got to read a story. I think there's a total of 30 stories in that journal, and I read a good maybe 20 of them out loud. And because the other 30 is just like half-done, sketchy kind of stories that were just there for me to play around with. So with one of my stories, well, not with one of them, it was a tradition with my stories that I started with the first time I read it, was that on the final picture of the story, I would draw a picture and then I'd write the end somewhere hidden in very big quotes, because it was the end like in the windowsill or in someone's head. And I wrote the end, and I'd call on someone and they'd point to where the end is. It was like a search and find, but with the end. Because the first time I wrote a story, I couldn't find a place to put the end, so I put it in the sun, and someone's like, hey, the end's in the sun. I'm like, oh, you found it, it's a find game, and I just made that up on the spot. It was pretty cool. And so around February, I was writing this really long story for my age, like it was 30 pages, and I was so proud of myself for writing so long of a story. And because I haven't read a story in front of the class for a while, there's this girl, and I'm not going to give her name out, but I'm going to say her name was Sass, because oh my gosh, the name explains how she acted. But Sass wrote her own story, and I'm like, oh cool, people are taking inspiration from me and writing their own stories, and I was so proud of myself. But then the final thing was her putting the end in her final picture. Now, at the time, one of our vocabulary words for us advanced students was plagiarize, and so I shouted, hey, she plagiarized me! Now, I'm 7, and I had the class in a frenzy because she copied off of me. Like, everyone was on my side, or at least that I knew of. It was great. Then there's this other girl. She's now my best friend in the whole wide world, but I don't know if I should say her name out loud. Heck, I'm gonna say her name out loud. She was in one of my videos before. Her name's Elizabeth, and I hated her back in 2nd grade. We ended up becoming friends in 5th grade because we're both nerds. Anyway, so one time she tried writing a story, and her writing style at the time was very similar to mine. So I could have sworn on my life she was copying off of me. So I kept her from reading her stories in front of the class because I thought she was copying off of me. And we make jokes about it all the time to this day. It's quite funny. There was also this dumb kid in our class. Now, I don't want to say his name because this whole thing's just going to be me making fun of him because I hate his guts. So I'll call him Scraps, because he always had paper scraps on his desk. So Scraps over here was in the back of the class, and now at the time in 2nd grade, my sister was 2 years old, and my mom was the vice president, or like first vice or something, of the PTA, and so she was always at school, and my sister would wander around. Now, because my sister would wander around, she'd come to my class and be like, oh, hi. And like the whole class would be saying hi because, you know, child in the room and we don't want to work. But then she would run right past me and to this dumb kid named Omar. And I had to stop because my sister just came into the room and she's like, I don't talk to ugly kids. And I'm like, okay, so for one, don't be that rude. That's my job. Two, yes, you did. And I just showed her the picture in the yearbook of the guy and she's like, ew, and she ran off. So that just tells you what kind of person my sister is. So also in 2nd grade, my teacher was absolutely obsessed with monkeys, and we read a lot about sock monkeys, and we learned about monkeys because she was obsessed with monkeys. So for this one project in art class, we had to decorate a giant box snowman based off of our class. And not even kidding, the art teacher was like, okay, what do you think is the thing that represents your class? And all at the same time, we all just annoyingly said monkeys. Like, we were all disappointed that monkeys represented our class, but we did it to make our teacher happy, and she was very happy, and it was so worth it. But 7-year-old me was dead set on making a Care Bear snowman. Of course, no one agreed with me, but I was dead set on it. So I went home and I made my own Care Bear box snowman, and let me tell you, one of the best crafts I've ever did. Now, the next one was about this group that I went to in 2nd grade. So in 2nd grade, that was the year my dad left. So I would go up to this like counselor office. I don't even know if it was a counselor because I don't even know what she was called in the building. But I went to this office that was on the top floor. Now, I rarely go on the top floor because I was a 2nd grader and only 4th and 5th graders would go on the top floor. So I'd go up there and she tried to talk through me about like my dad leaving. And she had just the most magnificent toys. She had dart things and balls, but I wasn't even into dolls at that time. But she had this giant dollhouse with so many assortment of Barbies, I couldn't just not play with it. So anytime I went up there, we'd play with the Barbies, and I would have so much fun playing with the Barbies. But there was this one time where I knew once I get back to class, I'd have to take a reading test. Now, reading tests in 2nd grade sucked because we had a 10-minute time limit to read a paragraph, and I knew today's topic would be on jaguars, which at the time terrified me. So near the 2-minute mark, like 2 minutes before I had to leave, I jumped back. Now, I did this without thinking, and then my teacher was like, oh, what's wrong? And very quickly, like I wasn't even planning this at all. Very quickly, I thought I saw a rat on the shelf, and there was a hole on the shelf conveniently, and she's like, oh, a rat hole. So I spent the next 15 minutes upstairs as my janitor came and put traps, and I got a couple blue tickets for spotting the rat. Now, blue tickets at my school were a reward system. We put our names on them, we put them in a bucket. If they were pulled, we get a prize or get to play a game on the morning announcement, something like that. And so I got a couple blue tickets for spotting the rat, and most importantly, I went down 15 minutes late. The test was already done, and saw my teacher saying, okay, gonna need you to take this. She said, I know you're a good student. I'm gonna exempt you from the test. So I didn't have to take it, and I still got all the points. And that was one of the best conveniences of me subconsciously jumping back, because it happens all the time. I subconsciously jump back all the time now because I get very scared easily, and sometimes I scare myself when nothing's going on. I could be in a still room. But that was the first time it happened, and I love my creativity for coming up with that so quickly. So that was it. Thank you so much for listening. If you'd like to hear more, my other videos are somewhere. Look at my channel for the other read-along talk videos about school. If you go in the description, there's all my social media links along with Discord, Twitter, Instagram, Wattpad, all my social medias. You could click on them, you could follow me, you know, stuff like that. Please subscribe. Apparently begging people helps bring up subscribers. I'm sorry for begging, but that's kind of how the YouTuber drip be. And like always, do your best.